So Russell, right now we're around 5 away from quorum.
Okay.
Elise, do you have the equation that you can put in to get the number into the spreadsheet?
I don't, but we have 19 people here so far. Can you drop in the equation?
I wish I knew it.
Okay. Can Rebecca jump in and fix it? But they're 19 people so far.
Okay. Addison's putting it in now.
Okay, great.
I got it.
So we're at 20. $21. We're at 22. Russell, if you want to start with the public session, we just can't take any actions until we have quorum.
All right, we'll just give it another minute and then I think we'll do that. right, let's get started. I think we may be at quorum very close to it, but in any event, calling the meeting to order, the March full board meeting of Community Board 8. So we're going to start off with the public session, and I will just remind folks, in order to speak in the public session, you need to have signed up to do so ahead of time. It's still possible to sign up if you haven't, and the way to do that is at the area on our website where you go to log into the Zoom. That's where you can sign up for the public session. You have until 6:45 if you still want to do that. All members of the public will be limited to 2 minutes in your remarks during the public session. We're very strict about that. We'll time you. And for everybody, members, people speaking in the public session, whoever you are, as ever, we ask you to be civil and respectful in your remarks. And the last thing is, for speakers in the public session, please let us know where you live at the start of your remarks. It's just helpful for us to know whether folks are from the community district or not. So please don't forget to do that at the start of your remarks. And I will turn it over to Will for other kind of housekeeping things before we get started.
Yeah, as Russell mentioned, during the public session, everyone will have 2 minutes who signed up. Russell will call your name. What you can do to help us speed up the process is look for the reactions icon on your screen, find it now, and look for the button that says raise hand. Don't push it yet, only push it whenever your name is called. But whenever your name is called for the public session, push that raise hand button and jump up to the top of our list so we can find you quickly. If your name is not correct in the participants menu, could you please just correct that, or if you're having problems with any of it, use the chat for technical support. The chat throughout the duration of the meeting is only for technical support. If you're having problems with Zoom, it's not to make comments or ask questions. Only myself and the staff will see those, and we're not going to be answering any of your questions about that. We'll only help with Zoom software technical support. And finally, if you're calling in from the phone and your name is called, look, you'll press the star and 9 buttons to raise your hand, and then star and 6 to unmute whenever you're called on. And just like that for everybody, once your name is called, look for a prompt on your screen asking you to confirm unmuting. All right, and with that, we can start the public session.
Very good. All right, let's start with Brandon Wilson, please.
Okay, Brandon, if you're here, you can just help us out by raising your virtual hand as I described earlier.
And then after Brandon, it's going to be Robert Brinberg.
I'm not seeing Brandon. Robert, if you're here as well. Robert, I see you. So we're going to go ahead and give you an unmute. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Great. I'm on the clock. My name is Robert Brinberg. My sister Claire and I are the beneficial owners of 65 East 93rd Street, the property adjacent to 63 East 93rd. We grew up there. Our late father bought the building in 1961. Met my mother there when she was a tenant, and they married 55 or so years ago. My mother's been the landlord of the building for the last 50 or so years, despite our best efforts to outsource the management of the building. On Monday's call, I spoke about how the proposed construction next door at 63 would impact the building, the visibility from the public space and so forth. I'm short on time, so I won't rehash that. On Monday, I also suggested that our new neighbors at 63 reach out to us to discuss their plans, as we'll invariably need to work together to move their project along regardless of the final scope. Unfortunately, we haven't heard from them, but we did receive numerous supportive messages from neighbors we've never met before, including some who spoke on the call. And I was happy to learn that we're clearly united in our opposition to the project, and we hope that the committee takes our collective sentiment into consideration. And with that, thank you for my 2 minutes and you can have the 27 seconds back.
Thank you very much. Next, let's go to Elizabeth Rose Daly.
Russell,
Go ahead.
and good evening, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Rose Daly, the Community Relations Manager of the Frick Collection. And I'd like to tell you about our newest exhibition, which is called The Gregory Gift. It's a remarkable bequest from the collection of Alexis Gregory, who is the publisher of On Dome Press. It features 28 acquisitions in a variety of media and forms, including Limoges enamels, clocks, ewers, a rhinoceros horn cup, and 2 stunning pastels by Rosalba Carriera. And the exhibition, which is on the 3rd floor, is open through July 9th. And I'm also delighted this evening to let you know that we are now offering free admission for youth between the ages of 10 and 17 through the remainder of our temporary residence at Frick Madison, making the museum more accessible than ever before to middle and high school students. Frick Madison is located on Madison Avenue at 75th Street. We're open Thursdays through Sundays from 10 to 6. And while you're there, you can also visit Sister Yard for coffee and pastries. And also on Thursday of every week, we have Pay What You Wish admission from 4 to 6 p.m. And if you'd like more information, visit our website, www.frick.org. And I look forward to seeing you at Frick Madison. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Judy Birdie.
Good evening. I'm Judith Birdie, a member, a longtime Roosevelt Island resident. I'm also a member of the Roosevelt Island Committee of Community Board 8. The comments I'm making now are my personal ones and do not reflect the work of the committee. I'm a member of the Kohler Hospital Community Advisory Board and the chair of the Kohler Auxiliary. I've been active in Kohler activities for over 20 years. The proposed F-train repairs and the schedule proposed by the MTA is a disaster for Kohler. It's 500 residents and almost 1,000 staff. Approximately 50% of the employees use mass transit to come and leave from work. Many work overnight shifts, meaning that they arrive at midnight, some arrive at 4 or 5 in the morning, and leave at all hours of the day or night. There is no tram service between Roosevelt Island between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. So those delayed and cannot get to the tram, and no subway service or subway service to distant parts in the middle of the night is very dangerous and not something that anyone would want their staff to use. Kohler, with its 500 residents, have no choice. The staff must come to work. They all came to work during the pandemic, and they continue to serve the hospital at this point, and must continue to. I appeal to you to work with the MTA, to work with REAC, to work with the Kohler administration, and especially our politicians. The lives of the Kohler residents and the lives of the staff are at risk if we have this unfair and, shall we say, difficult and challenging situation with our F-train, and we appeal to the community board to do all possible to assist us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Evelyn David, please.
Evelyn, it's *6 to unmute. Just push that on your phone. Evelyn, it's *6
Okay,
to unmute.
did that work?
There you go. Yep.
Did
Your
that
clock
work?
is starting right
Yes, yeah,
now.
we hear you.
Great. Oh, sorry about this. God, my phone. Okay, I'm Evelyn David. I live on Lexington Avenue, 806, around the corner from all of you, your office. Okay, this is about congestion pricing. I was at the Against Congestion Pricing demonstration on Sunday. There were a lot of very well-spoken, sound, reasoning speakers both politicians and other very concerned people in the neighborhoods. People from Brooklyn also. I mean, everybody is there. I don't know if anybody's listening. I think at this, I mean, I don't want to get depressed about it, but, you know, you just have to keep letting them know that the unintended consequences are huge. And, you know, so far I haven't heard any response from the MTA people. So having said that, there's also a council person I heard speaking recently who said that she was thinking that maybe they should make all parking spaces in New York City only for residents. I'm like, oh, great. So the people from New Jersey, Connecticut, any place coming into New York, where would they park? And the other thing is, imagine if that went through, what would happen to congestion pricing? I mean, they go crazy. Like you'd have, I don't know, this is not France. There would not be a revolution and there wouldn't be a strike. So but I don't know what people would do. Imagine what it would do to the commerce. You know, I mean, there are so many things that have to be worked out with this instead of people yelling and screaming about it. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to mention that the demonstration was actually very, very, very well done. And kudos to the people running it. There were a lot of press people there. I've heard things on NBC. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you. And I see we've been joined by our Congress member. And let's
Very good. So, yeah, Congressman Nadler, if you'd like to give your report now, please do.
Sure. Thank you very much. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all for my first Community Board 8 meeting. I look forward to working with Russell, Will, and all the board members on local Upper East Side issues and providing you all with updates about my work in Washington. As Dean of the New York Congressional Delegation, I organized a bipartisan meeting with Governor Hochul and the delegation Monday morning to learn how the state is addressing the recent bank failures. I must commend the governor and the superintendent for responding to this issue quickly to ensure that depositors are protected. I also applaud President Biden for taking swift action to ensure that Americans continue to have confidence in our banking and for his pledge not to allow taxpayers to bear any of the burdens of this crisis. In 2018, around the 10th anniversary of one of the worst financial crises in our nation's history, former President Donald Trump signed legislation passed by a then Republican Congress to weaken the landmark Dodd-Frank reforms created in the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. That legislation, which I proudly voted against, gutted consumer protections and deregulated several of our nation's largest banks. The recent bank failures are largely a result of this deregulation, and Congress should move quickly to repeal President Trump's failed legislation to strengthen financial guardrails. Last month, I hosted Mayor Eric Adams in Washington to discuss how federal partners can best support the city as it works to provide shelter for incoming asylum seekers. I'm working closely with the mayor's office to secure the new $800 million pot of FEMA grant money that Senator Schumer and I helped create. I'm also working to get the city the funding for food security programs, public housing, and more in this year's appropriations process. As a member of the Congressional SALT Caucus to fight, I am fighting to restore the state and local tax deduction, to cut taxes and help make life more affordable for millions of middle-class families. SALT was unfairly targeted in the Trump tax bill, and it must be restored. Since 2019, the House has passed legislation 3 times to restore it, but the Senate did not. Finally, I want to mention one of our least favorite things: tourist helicopters. Over the past decade, our city has seen increased numbers of non-essential tourism and commuter helicopters. Helicopter-related noise complaints to 311 have gone up in New York City by over 2,300% just in the last 5 years. And helicopter safety, noise, and environmental concerns are now one of the top issues I hear about from my constituents. The overwhelming number of helicopter flights over New York City creates intolerable risks to the community and negative impacts on the quality of life of all its residents. For this reason, I introduced the Improving Helicopter Safety Act of 2021 to prohibit non-essential helicopter flights over New York City. I have also written to the FAA several times, most recently in 2019, requesting that the agency issue temporary flight restrictions to prohibit non-essential helicopter flights over the city. Despite requests for action from the majority of the New York City congressional delegation, the FAA has failed to take meaningful steps to address this issue. I'm working closely with the advocacy group Stop the Chop, my colleagues in Congress, and the Biden administration to force the FAA's hand. I recently introduced the Safe and Quiet Skies Act to improve safety and reduce community disruption from commercial air tours nationwide. With Congress due to take up FAA reauthorization this year, we authorize agencies every 5 years. My staff and I are working hard to ensure that the Safe and Quiet Skies Act and other New York City-focused bills to limit tourism helicopters are included in the reauthorization. I'll leave it there for now and would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we don't do questions at the full board meetings in the interest of time, but appreciate your being here and just want to say welcome. It's great to have you, and thank you very, very much for your report.
Well, thank you.
All right, we have also been joined by Councilmember Julie Menon, so I want to give her an opportunity to give her report as well.
Thank you
And
so
welcome.
much, Russell. Thank you. And hello, Community Board 8. And it's great to see our Congressman, Jerry Nadler, here with us today. So I want to give an update. This is the last Community 8 full board meeting before we start participatory budgeting. So the majority of my update, I'm going to focus on that. But before I get to that, I want to mention that my Healthcare Accountability and Consumer Protection Act, which I've spoken many times to the board about, we held our hearing last week, and that bill, I'm happy to say, is moving forward with very widespread support. And that bill, again, will seek to mandate that hospitals have to disclose the price of all of their medical procedures. So very excited to say that that is moving forward. I also want to let the board know that I'm holding a hearing along with the Public Safety Committee on retail theft. We're looking at a date in April. As soon as we have that date, I will let the board know for those members that are interested in testifying. And specifically, we're going to be looking at solutions that are within the city's purview that the city can control to help to reduce and combat this problem that we all know is happening of retail theft. We're obviously in the middle of budget hearings in the council. So I held my budget hearing, the Small Business Committee, where we've been very focused on making sure that SBS is doing everything they can to support our city's small businesses. I also participated today in the sanitation budget hearing, and I'm happy to say that I asked the Department of Sanitation about when they would start rolling out smart compost bins, and the commissioner said that they're going to start rolling them out in Community Board 8 this summer. So wanted to make sure that everyone knew that. We also had our education budget hearing today, where I remain deeply concerned about cuts to 3K and how we can make sure that they are restored. Also want to mention on Roosevelt Island, we've been working on a couple of different issues. My office has been working with many of my colleagues on the 63rd Street F train direct tracks fixation work. We drafted a letter to the MTA and to REAC on that, asking for mitigation measures, and also want to mention issues with a drastic 400% rate increase at Sports Park. So I'm happy to say that we've been pushing REAC really hard on these issues, and as a result of that, these were suspended. So just wanted to make sure to update the board on that. Now, quickly moving forward to participatory budgeting, I'm thrilled to be running PB again this year. We did it last year. We had a huge response last year. I want to just give you the project list as well as some general information. So voting runs from March 25th to April 2nd. There's going to be both online voting, in-person options. We will publish all the information next week ahead of the beginning of voting. But here are the projects: new trees and tree guards for District 5, lighting upgrades for Stanley Isaacs Park, new security cameras for Holmes Towers, a new garden for PS 151's rooftop play space, renovation of PS 527, which you can see I'm in right now, their indoor rooftop play space, gym pad upgrades for PS 183, PS 217 bathroom upgrades, new security system for PS 198 and PS 77, tech upgrades for MS 114, and bathroom upgrades for Talent Unlimited High School. So that is a list, and just wanted to tell you about that, and we'll be disseminating more information on that. I know I can't answer any questions, but should people have questions, just please reach out to the office at any time. And thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you very much. All right. Back to the public session, and next is Andrew Fine, please.
Andrew, you can go ahead and unmute, and we'll put the 2-minute clock up on the screen.
Thank you, Will. Julie Menon is always a tough act to follow. Thank you, Julie, for everything that you're doing for the community. I'm here tonight to represent the coalition in opposition to congestion pricing, which you can find at stopcongestionpricing.com. We held a successful rally on Sunday at the foot of the 59th Street Bridge that included council members Ari Kagan, council member Kalman Yeager, Assembly member and OG congestion pricing opponent David Weprin. Unfortunately, we're interrupted by paid lobbyists from Transalt and Riders Alliance. It was unfortunate. It was a bit of a fracas, but we ended up with a successful rally, which included the two council members, the assembly member, and 9 candidates for city council. We would love to have more support from our local elected officials. We have support from throughout the region, the tri-state region, but not so much locally. We did have 9 candidates for city council, and as I suggested, if our representatives don't represent us, maybe we should find some new representatives. Finally, there were several community organizations that partook in this rally that, as I mentioned, was very successful. Bottom line is congestion pricing is unfair to the elderly, those that are mobility impaired, hardworking individuals and families. And we encourage you to visit stopcongestionpricing.com to sign up on our contact sheet and join the movement to stop congestion pricing. It's a disgrace. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Stephanie Reckler.
Hi, I was also at the congestion pricing rally on Sunday, and I would just like to thank Michelle Birnbaum and Ed Hartog and Andrew Fine for their efforts. And I might say I thought they were rather courageous to try to shout above the goons who were not very well controlled initially by the police. I found it very frightening to be silenced or to try to be silenced by people who were sent there specifically to silence the speakers so that they wouldn't be heard. And I really appreciate the efforts that Michelle, Ed, and Andrew did. I think it doesn't speak very well for our society that one group feels that they can shut down another group because they don't like what they're saying. I just think that it is a travesty, and I don't think that initially the police did a very good job of trying to keep them in a space where they didn't have a permit and where Michelle had the permit, and they finally brought in a lot of barricades and they were pushing them. The police were trying to push keep the barricades where they were. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is Daniel Perez.
Daniel, look for a prompt on your screen to unmute.
Hello, I was wondering if we could transfer over to my name is Daniel Perez. I'm with Verde NYC. I was wondering if we could transfer the conversation over to our CEO and our CLO, Rafael Urena and Christina Aris.
Sure.
So we'll start with Raphael. So that's for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Raphael, look for a prompt on your screen to unmute. You have 2 minutes.
Great. Thank you, guys. I'm the Chief Legal Officer. Sorry, there's a bit of an echo in here. I'm the Chief Legal Officer of Mama Verde NYC, which is a retail cannabis dispensary applicant that is looking to start a location here in the Upper East Side. So we decided today to start the conversation and to, kind of introduce ourselves to the community and the community board, who will eventually have the opportunity to weigh in on that application. So the law states that the municipality, and in New York City, the municipality is authority to support or disapprove of an cannabis dispensary applicant is with the community board. So you guys have to weigh in on that. We kind of, behind me, you see kind of the image that we have for our store that we would like to open here. It's very different from the smoke shop feel. It's smoke glass. It's going to be designed not to be enjoyable for children or not to kind of get children's attention. Very different from what you guys have been seeing in the community. I'm going to turn the time over to our CEO, Christina Rez, to speak.
Okay, let's unmute her.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Christina Arez, and I'm here to talk about Mama Verde. So Mama Verde is a Latina mother-owned cannabis company. My partner, Crystal Bloomfield, and I are planning to apply for a license to open an adult use retail dispensary in New York, which Rafa had mentioned. So we want to sell cannabis products that meet the health and quality standards that the law requires. Our main priority is keeping our children safe while bringing something fun and clean and responsible to the community. I know that illicit markets have been opening up, and without any knowledge of the products they are selling, who they're selling it to, and we want to be responsible stewards of this type of product in your neighborhood. Yeah, and that's really it. So thank you, Rafa, for handing the floor over to me.
All right. Thank you both. So I'll just let you know, and this is, it's new for us also, but we are going to be doing cannabis licensing through our Street Life Committee, which is the same process that we use for liquor licenses. So we can have the board office follow up with you and connect with you in terms of scheduling that and time for that. But that's going to be the process for reviewing these applications in our board. And so welcome and thank you. All right, next let's go to Lo Vandervalk.
Lo,
yes,
you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Lo Vandervalk, representing Carnegie Hill Neighbors. I'd like to comment on the landmarks application for 3 East 93rd, which was well considered by the Landmarks Committee, and they voted unanimously to disapprove the application, which involved a rooftop addition and a full 4-story height rear yard addition, which comes up to the level of the roof line of, and currently the roofs of 3 adjoining and 4 in total row houses all have a roof line that is similar and ends at the 4th floor. Particularly concerning is the view from the rear yard, and that is open to the public because of the public courtyard, which is a privately owned public space and affords excellent views. And that's an additional argument for not allowing the rooftop addition, which incidentally also blocks the windows facing the west of 60 of the neighboring 65 East 93rd. And those are historic windows and deserve landmarks protection. So I want to thank the committee on that. And one further item on the unrelated on the 5G towers. Carnegie Hill neighbors, Carnegie Hill area had 10 towers planned. Now they have been reduced to 6 towers. We learned that from no announcement, but simply consulting the map. So we don't know what to make of it, but I just want to let everyone know of this development. Again, thank you so much, Community Board 8. Signing off.
Thank you. All right, next is Claire Brinberg.
Claire, you can go ahead and unmute. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Hi, thank you very much. And I wanted to give big thanks to the Landmarks Committee that heard this case on Monday. I'm echoing what Lo said and my brother said about the new proposal for 63 East 93rd Street. 65 East 93rd Street is the house where I grew up, and it's the house where my mother is the landlord. Robert explained most of the details, but I just wanted to reinforce one point that our father brought this building back to life when he bought it in 1961. He laid down the hardwood floors in the penthouse apartment with his own hands. He took pains to maintain and preserve all the historical architectural components of the building, including the 2 beautiful steel windows that are now in danger of disappearing completely as a result of the proposed construction next door. Our building and those windows are part of the historic fabric of this neighborhood. Our mother, the landlord, has maintained the highest standards because she believes the house and the Carnegie Hill neighborhood deserves nothing less. She is not a mogul. She is a driven and dedicated retired professor, a 90-year-old woman, and this building has been a labor of love for her for the past 45 years. All she wants and all we want is to preserve the beautiful historic building with which we have been entrusted. Thank you very much for hearing us.
Thank you. Next, let's go to Sandrea I. Coleman, please.
Thank you, Russell. Greetings all. I'm Sandra I. Coleman, one of the co-founders of the Homes Islands Coalition. In the Speaker's annual State of the City address last week, City Council member Adrian Adams planned to repropose infill at New York City Housing Authority campuses. Infill was a bad idea in 2015. It is problematic again for stakeholders like myself that call public housing home. This proposal, as I have coined infill with a twist, has Section 8, Section 9, which is what NYCHA residents are under. It will have Section 8 and market rate apartments too. I am all for decreasing the homeless crisis that is in this city and in this country that we are faced with. But this is not what you do. You do not squeeze a building upon the land that residents enjoy by taking away a parking lot and or open space. On the news, she made a statement that NYCHA is land rich. There are other spaces in the city that this can take place upon. We want to retain our land, air, views, and respect. This thought is bad as well as disrespectful to residents that are undergoing horrific issues already. Myself and others fought the infill proposal at Holmes Towers for 4 years and we won. We are not sure what developments are being considered, but we are gearing up for this battle wherever it shall be. We hope if our campus is chosen that we will have this community board's full support. Thank you. Thank you for the time. Thank you, Russell.
You got it, and you will. All right, let's go next to Brandon Wilson, who we called on earlier, who I think is here now.
Hi, guys. My name is Brandon Wilson, and I'm a resident at 444 East 75th Street. Neighboring block is Con Ed. The problem that I'm bringing today is there's a vendor who continuously parks out front on York Avenue and sorts packages. The reason I bring it a concern is specifically over the years, Con Ed has needed access to 75th Street in particular, so the firemen can reach their sub-power station to put out a fire. And to date, I've called Officer Connolly past couple of days, he has not yet reached out to me. I think it's in particular concern that this Amazon delivery subservice, which is owned by or being organized by LaserShip, needs to be taken care of, as there are many city violations. At the same time, I have been recording them. I've been in touch with Julie Mannon's office, recording them particularly for DEP violations, the 3-Minute Clean Air Act. I've been submitting those. I've also, today, actually, I was recording one, and one of the employees decided to follow me into my apartment building, at which point I told him to leave and I called the cops. All they did was say that we could assess a harassment violation against said person. But I think there's continuous violations for Department of Transportation, Sanitation, and even police code. And I would just like something to be seen and done about it, and hold the responsible parties accountable, particularly the corporation, which is Leber Flores, and in particular, the police department, to enforce the required, let's say, statutes and codes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that is all for the public session. So we will move next to adoption of the agenda. So if there's a motion to do that, you can do it with a thumbs up. And second, likewise. Yep, I see Rami moves. Is there a second? Yes, got a bunch. Okay, anyone opposed? No. Okay, very good. Thank you. Next, adoption of last month's minutes. Yep, I see hands.
Michelle
Anyone
actually
opposed?
has a comment.
Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you, Russell. I wanted to point out that there's an error in my vote. In our landmark committee vote on part 2 about the exterior lighting of 972 Fifth Avenue, it was a disapproval. I did not abstain, as the minutes say. I voted yes on the disapproval.
Got it. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that was about this month's committee. Yeah, so we'll make that change. Okay, so motion, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, was your hand just up to make a motion to approve the minutes?
With the change?
Yes, I move to approve the minutes.
Good, as amended. Okay, is there a second to do that? Yep, good. Anyone opposed? Very good. All right, next, let's go to the Borough President's report. If we want to do that now, or if he's going to be here later, we can wait. Is Mina here?
Mina, you can unmute. Go ahead, yeah.
Hi, good evening, Community Board 8. No, the Borough President cannot make it. He is not here available is because he's actually at the New York City Bar Association. They're hosting an event in a forum, a panel discussion on the rise of anti-Semitism in regards to what can be done legally as well as legislatively. So unfortunately, that's why he couldn't be here, but he sends his regards. One, I do want to say happy Her Story Month, happy Women's Her Story Month. And I do want to congratulate the Audie recipients, such as Executive Officer Anthony Levito. The Borough President was able to attend last week and extends his congratulations. And our office will also be hosting a Women's History Month celebrating women in health and wellness at Hunter College's Roosevelt House. And that will be on March 22nd at 6 p.m. So hope you can attend. I'll put that Eventbrite link in the chat. In addition, just to continue the report, one, I don't know if you all saw, but last week, the Borough President did come out with this report on, Shed the Shed. So that report basically was a study in addition and in collaboration with Councilmember Powers in regards to just how many sheds we have, scaffolding sheds that we have here throughout the borough. as much as we've had, I think, over 200 scaffolding sheds here for over 5 years, unfortunately, in the borough of Manhattan. So that report basically, one, strategizes to support buildings that have had significant scaffolding sheds for a significant amount of years. And for those who perhaps those buildings cannot afford to get those down or not have those resources, I'm thinking of HDFCs for that nature. And for those issues, two, reducing the delays of permitting. So oftentimes there's an issue, particularly in historic districts, when putting up scaffolding sheds in buildings. And often if there's any mishaps in the landlord or the property owner submitting the application, it can often delay the work getting done for months if it's improperly submitted to LPC. So coming up with a strategy to expedite those type of applications, particularly in historic districts. To hold buildings accountable for those do have sheds up for extended periods. DOB did have an increase in their fees. However, we want to make sure that we continue that so that bad actors will quickly do the work so that sheds can come down. And also, he also wanted us to also extend local law 11 and the compliance so that we're having more consistent check-ins and investigations in buildings. And I do want to also highlight Councilmember Powers' legislation back in 2022, which was Intro 452. And that was actually to use drone technology to help with inspecting facade work. And so that was also included in the plan. So thank you to Councilmember Powers and his office in being partners in this report and also pushing legislation to enact some of these report findings. And I also want to just say in terms of Roosevelt Island and REAC, and of course the increase in pricings that we heard, the increase in pricings that we heard with Sports Park, as well as Motorgate Parking Garage. The borough president did meet with REAC and Shelton Hayes and did ask for a pause on both Sports Park as well as Motorgate. We're waiting to hear back on the increase for the disabled community at the parking garage. However, we are happy to hear that there has been a pause on the increases at Sports Park. So we're very happy to report that and see that that's happening. And we also just appreciate everything that has been said about that train, and we'll also be looking into that as well. So thank you. I'll put all the information in the chat as well as my contact information. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's do the elected official reports now. So folks, who are here for an elected official's office, please raise your hand and we will call on you for your 2-minute report. And we will start with Audrey Tannen.
Thank you. Thank you, Will and Russell. Hi, everyone. As you all know, Liz is chair of the Senate Finance Committee. So these days, these next weeks, she really is in the room where it happens. She is hauled up with budget negotiations. She's part of the Senate leadership team that is really part of the final negotiations with the governor's office. So that is how she'll be occupying her time the next few weeks. That being said, we are still following some pieces of legislation. And please know, I know these are a particular concern to CB8. Liz's legislation about the unlicensed cannabis board, the shops, has actually moved forward. We're really hoping that that will be signed into law, I hope, by the next time we all meet at the community board. The other one about the e-bikes and the batteries, making sure that there are secure batteries that are actually verified. That has also moved forward, not as quickly as the unlicensed cannabis shops oversight, but they're both moving forward. And we really hope that we're going to have very positive news for you in the coming weeks about each of those. She too has been very proactive and vocal about the issues on Roosevelt Island, all of them. She's met with REAC President Shelton Hayes, and also she's really has a direct line of communication with the chair of the REAC board, Commissioner Benakis, and she has kept an open line of communication with her about all of these issues. That's it for now. Of course, we're always available should you need us in our office. Thanks. Have a wonderful and productive meeting. Good night.
Thank you. Next is Jesse Kay.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for having myself and Councilmember Powers on CB8 tonight. We just want to make a couple announcements. Last week, Councilmember Powers joined Carnegie Hill Neighbors in their campaign to oppose the Link 5G proposal on the Upper East Side. He spoke with residents about preserving the integrity of our historic districts and reminded folks that he will continue to support the neighborhood's efforts to keep large 5G poles from being erected on their streets. And if you would like to voice your concerns on this issue, please feel free to email me. I'll put my information in the chat, and you can also call our office, and I'll post that number as well. This month, Councilmember Powers introduced 2 new bills to address the growing number of fires throughout the city caused by lithium-ion batteries. These batteries, commonly used to power e-bikes, have been linked to an increasing number of fires. Last year, the FDNY reported over 200 fires caused by lithium-ion batteries, which was up from 28 in 2019, so pretty big jump. And to address this issue, Councilmember Powers is introducing legislation to create a program that will get unsafe batteries off the streets and ensure that workers who rely on e-mobility devices ensure that they have the means to safely charge those batteries. And those 2 bills are Intro 949 and Intro 950, if you would like to look into them. As the borough president announced, last Monday, they hosted a press conference to unveil a report and recommendations on streamlining and expediting the use of scaffolding in sidewalk sheds throughout the city. We feel that scaffolding laws in the city, they're overly complicated, and once scaffolding has been erected, these temporary structures often remain standing for years. We think the sheds detract from the pedestrian experience, they complicate wayfinding, and frankly are poorly lit and maintained. And new legislation will be announced tomorrow, and we're excited to share the details with the community board soon. And finally, it's tax season. Just a reminder that families with dependents who earned $80,000 or less and individuals who earned $56,000 or less in 2022 can use the NYC free tax prep program. I can send that link in the chat as well. And the link will take you to the New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protections portal to find the closest tax preparation site near you. There's 4 different types of services that you can utilize when you're filing through NYC free tax prep. You can do in-person service, drop-off service, virtual tax prep service, and assisted self-preparation. And that's it from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is James Giuliano.
Hello, everyone. I'm James from Assemblymember Boris's office. I'll get right to it. First of all, super exciting update. On Monday, for the first time, Assemblymember Boris presided over the assembly for the day. So that was a really cool experience. It was cool to see him up there on the podium. Next, so the Assemblymember has submitted a bill to raise the maximum fine on telemarketing scammers. And we're really excited and proud to say that that bill has passed both necessary committees and is ready to head for a vote in the Assembly. And then, of course, it'll have to go through the Senate. Next, this is, I think, a pretty topical bill, probably especially for some folks on CB8. The Assemblymember has submitted a bill to extend the petitioning deadline this year. We'll have to keep everybody notified, of course, like with how the bill goes. But essentially, the petitioning deadline for this year, the final day, is the first day of Passover. So to make sure that everything is fair, especially for Jewish candidates, election lawyers, folks that are submitting petitions, the bill would extend the petitioning deadline from the 6th to the 10th to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity to file their petitions. The Assemblymember has also submitted a very interesting labor bill that, frankly, if those of you that know him with his computer science background, he could speak to even better than I can on the technical front. But essentially, it's a labor bill that will ensure that intellectual property developed by an employee with their own equipment on their own time does not belong to the company that they work for, because that wouldn't really be fair. And then I'm going to send a link in the chat to some of the assembly members' questioning and discussion during the very busy budget hearings this month. There were some fascinating conversations with the Department of Health and during a budget hearing on mental hygiene. So check those out. I'll send them in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Next is Summer Bedford.
Hi, everybody. I'm from Senator Serrano's office. So he has been very busy up in Albany, as I'm sure all other electeds have been. Budget season is upon us, so he's been meeting with a bunch of local organizations, getting all their budget requests and asks in. This past weekend, he was very excited. He got to co-host a Somos workshop where he discussed the way that the arts and culture has promoted discussions about uplifting Puerto Rican history throughout New York City, which is something that he's very passionate about. He also just had a bill passed through the Senate Bill 253, which creates arts and cultural districts across New York State, and that will help boost the economy in those areas as well as promote tourism. And if you have any issues that you need to discuss with our office, you can feel free to stop by at 335 East 100th Street. We also have a offsite constituent hours coming up, and it's going to be located at the Aguilar Library on March 23rd from 3 to 6 p.m. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Courtney Pharisee.
Good evening. I'm Courtney Pharisee, Chief of Staff to Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright. Assemblymember Seawright is in Albany negotiating the budget. The One House Assembly recommendations have been presented, and as chair of the People with Disabilities Committee, she's fighting for inclusion of the direct support wage enhancement for direct service professionals. We're encouraged that both the Senate and Assembly proposals have included an 8.5% COLA for vulnerable populations. The Assembly's proposal also provided for $246 million in additional operating funds for the City University of New York to avoid tuition hikes, notably including Seawright's priority of $4 million to provide support for students with disabilities. The One House also modified the executive proposal to expand the Medicaid buy-in program for working people with disabilities by limiting their monthly premium payments to 8.5% of their income, making it possible for people to earn higher wages and still have access to essential care. By April, I'll be joining you with an update on the final adopted budget for New York State. In our latest community update, we paid tribute to the life of Judy Heumann, the mother of the disability rights movement. Ms. Heumann, who used a wheelchair since childhood as a result of polio, died on Saturday, March 4th. She played important roles in advocating for passage of the Rehabilitation Act, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act, as well as the adoption of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Assemblymember Seawright raised the question of sports park affordability at a state budget hearing and was pleased to see that REOC suspended the proposed 400% increase until further notice. We're closely monitoring this and other matters of governance on Roosevelt Island. As you know, March is Women's History Month, and we invite community members to nominate a woman of distinction in their lives. We're extending the deadline for nominations through March 24th, and they can be submitted to our community office. And I'll put my information in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that is it for the elected officials reports. So for the chair's report, first of all, I want to wish a happy early birthday to Barry Schneider, who I think most of you know is a former chair of CB8 and a longtime board member and still a public member of the Parks and Waterfront Committee. His birthday's tomorrow, so I just want to say happy birthday, Barry, and hope you get to celebrate tomorrow and enjoy it. I want to let folks know about, so for the, we've already had a presentation here in the full board about the Memorial Sloan Kettering proposal to replace one of their non-medical buildings with a cancer care facility, and that's going to go through ULURP. And so they're going to be presenting at the Zoning and Development Committee at the end of this month. March 28th. But after that, they are interested in doing extensive public engagement with the community and with this board. And so in consultation with the committee, we're going to have a CB8 task force to have multiple meetings over the course of the next several months with them on various different topics to go over that. The task force is going to be chaired by Anthony Cohn and Felice Farber. And we'll have more info about that and the meeting dates and all of that stuff. But I just want to give everybody a heads up and let you all know about that. And the last thing I will say is we have been doing pretty well lately on the length of the meetings. So I am going to try to kind of keep that streak going. And I just ask for all of your help as well in terms of trying to be concise in your remarks and not repeating comments made by others, and sticking to the topic. And we have all of our procedures to take the unanimous votes together and all of that. So let's see if we can keep the streak alive in terms of trying to get our meetings done more quickly. And so in the interest of doing that, I will pass it on to Will.
Thank you, Russell. So first off, I will flag that this Friday at 5 p.m. is the deadline for the Manhattan Borough President's Office to receive applications for board members. So if you are a board member whose term is up and you need to reapply, or if you're an interested member of the public who wants to join Community Board 8, you can go to the link in the chat and follow that to apply to be in your community board. The deadline again is Friday at 5 p.m. Then I will flag a lot of programming notes for the month of April, as there are several religious holidays that we like to make sure people are allowed to observe. So the first, our transportation committee, which usually meets on the first Wednesday of the month, because of Passover, will be meeting on the second Wednesday of the month, April 12th. Which means that our land use committee meeting, should it occur, is going to be moved from the second Wednesday of the month to the fourth Wednesday of the month, which is April 26th. And in regards to Passover as well, our Parks Committee meeting, which is usually held on the second Thursday of the month, has been moved up to the second Monday of the month, which is April 10th. All of this information is actually already on our website, and you can go to cb8m.com and find our calendar, and you can subscribe to our newsletter for updates. And finally, I want to close my remarks by saying thank you to Saida and Robert and Kevin and our staff for covering last week while I took a needed vacation, and they did a wonderful job, and everybody should be very proud of them because they're incredible. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Russell.
Thank you very much. I agree with that. And let's go now to our committee reports, and we will start with the Landmarks Committee and David and Jane.
Good evening. Thank you, Russell. We had a very interesting meeting this past Monday night. The first application was 972 Fifth Avenue. That's an individual landmark. A house designed by McKim, Mead and White, also known as the Payne Whitney House. It's now the home of the French Cultural Services in New York. This application was divided into two parts. The first part, which was a unanimous vote, was for a statue, a very charming little statue of the Little Prince, to be placed on the wall of the garden or courtyard that's adjacent to 972 Fifth Avenue. This is a very famous book. The author wrote The Little Prince when he was a resident in New York, living on Central Park South. Before the book was published, he was actually killed he was working for the U.S. Air Force and was killed in a reconnaissance flight over North Africa. There are no memorials to the author in the city. It's a French name, which perhaps Russell, who's a better French scholar than I am, could pronounce. I don't want to ruin his name. Antoine de Exupéry, does that sound correct?
Exupéry.
Russell? Yeah. Anyway, that was the unanimous, that's part A of the resolution. Part B was much more complicated, and I want to do a screen share. I see that we can see a picture of the mansion. It's now shrouded in scaffolding. But part B was a very complicated and I thought fascinating application to install on the front elevation at each floor and at the corner. So 20 rods and all. I think if you move down, this is the sculpture of the little prince that will go up, which you're all looking at. But Saida or whoever is doing, and there you can see it's next to the gate and the garden. It's not that high. It's like 4.5 feet high. Very sweet. So better, you can see it'll be sort of that bronze color. Now the exterior lighting, this was much more controversial. It was, everyone voted against it except for me. I apologize to Michelle for misrecording her vote. In any case, you can barely see in this picture these very thin, narrow rods of glass that will be on each of the 4 floors, starting with the 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. They are glass sculptures that will have LED lighting behind them that will sort of create a kinetic movement as the light goes up and down the glass sculpture. I think we can go to the next slide. This shows you exactly what the glass sculpture will sort of look like with the LED light behind it. They're very narrow. They're like approximately 4 inches wide, and they will be set between the columns on the front elevation of this magnificent McKibben white house. I think we can go to the next slide. There you see what they'll look like at night. The lighting will start to appear as the sun sets, and then I believe will stay on for practically the whole night. I thought it was just quite fascinating and very innovative and cutting edge. And I didn't think it detracted from the architecture of this magnificent house. However, we did get most of the members of the committee disapproved of the application. I was the only member to actually approve it. So is there another slide that shows this? This may be the last slide. So here you see in close up exactly what these thin, narrow panels will look like. The major concern that the committee had was that the applicant did not give us a time frame for the installation. In other words, the Jewish Museum, which has the big banner, which we voted on, we knew it was going to be up for at least a year and then taken down. This applicant did not give us a time frame. The other major concern was that to attach these rods to the front of the mansion, each rod would require 2 holes to be drilled into the mortar between the limestone blocks. And there was concern that in total that would be 45 holes, and would that damage some of the original historic material on the front elevation and at the corner of this mansion. Is there another slide? So there you see, that's what they think it'll look like at night. And I think we can go to the committee. I don't want to have a long discussion, as Russell pointed out. We're trying to keep within a certain time frame. But, and as I pointed out, everyone on the committee voted against the application except for me, and not for the little prince. That was a unanimous vote. We divided the application into 2 parts.
Yeah, so let's do the first one first, and we'll have commentary on the first one and vote on the first one potentially, or eventually. So let's do that first. And you got some hands up, and the first hand is Marco.
Thank you. I would like to call the question. The first one, the Little Prince.
Rebecca seconds.
All right, all in favor? Any opposed? We can go to a vote.
Good. Secretaries.
Yeah. Addison was supposed to take the first vote, but I've lost him. So I'm going to go to Felice very quickly.
Hi, thank you. Addison was having some technical difficulties, so we switched places. Thanks, Will. So on landmarks item 1, part A, is anyone voting no, abstaining or voting or not voting for cause? Michelle?
Yeah, I'm abstaining as I did in the committee vote, which was recorded correctly, but Jane just misstated that it was unanimous. It was not. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you wanted your vote corrected. I'm sorry, Michelle.
No, the next one is the correct.
Oh,
one.
sorry.
Okay, so Michelle, you're abstaining. Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, the motion is approved.
All right, so let's now do part B.
Does anybody want to speak to part B, which is the lighting, the proposed lighting scheme for the front elevation of 972 Fifth Avenue?
And if not, someone can call the question.
Jane, I would just like to quickly add to what Jane had said. I also agreed totally with Jane that it was a very unique and innovative display using the lighting. And I would have supported it had it had a time limit on it. Unfortunately, with no time limit, I don't think it's appropriate to keep it on the building indefinitely. Last but not least, there was concern about the holes going into the mortar. They were able to do that successfully at the Jewish Museum, to the best of our knowledge. And this is actually simpler than what was done at the Jewish Museum. Therefore, much as I don't like drilling into historic buildings, drilling into the mortar here, I think would be something that could be done without damaging the building. So I just wanted to add to a little bit to what Jane said, because I want to be fair to the application.
Thank you, David.
I just do we want to be more specific maybe in this one, part B, and specify that that's sort of the main concern? And
I don't know if it was absolutely the main concern. You can see a couple of people
no,
waving.
okay, all right, that's fine. Okay,
No.
well, so you do,
But
you
it
got a
is
bunch of
in the
hands, so let's go.
resolution. It is in the resolution.
I saw it's mentioned in the whereas clause. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first hand that you have is Anthony.
Thank you, Russell. I just want to express what I felt was the general feeling of the committee, which was that if this was, and certainly my view, even if this installation were temporary, it is inappropriate. It's inappropriate on that building. It is inappropriate, I think, on any landmark, any individual landmark. And there are a number of issues that are raised by the proposed, by the proposal, not the least of which is the manner of getting power to it from within the house. And it may be that at the end of the day, it would be very difficult to do. And then furthermore, on an installation like this, if they were to come back to us, it would be the right way to do it would be, in fact, to have a working sample and it up outside the window and have us be able to look at it. I think that it's very hard to take this kind of installation on faith, especially in an individual landmark. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Michelle had her hand up.
Mrs. Brown is.
What's next?
Oh, no, Mrs. Brown put her hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Call the question, please.
I don't think we should yet, Russell, but
That's up to you. Yeah, if you want to hear the other hands, you've got Rebecca.
I do
and
want to
Michelle.
hear the other hands. It's an important application. Michelle?
Thank you, Jane. Yeah, I mean, you saw the picture of this building. This is a magnificent building. It's an individual landmark. It does not need any improvement or any enhancement. It needs respect. It doesn't need anybody using it as a backdrop for, let me turn that off, as a backdrop for an art project. If they feel that this art presentation is necessary, then they can bring it indoors and illustrate how this moving light sculpture works. But to use a building like this as a background or a backdrop for their artistic vision is completely inappropriate for the building and for the district. So I really ask that that this board vote against this. The issue of its permanence or it being temporary was not an issue for me. It was respect for this building, the integrity of the building, and the fact that this kind of light, any kind of show, does not belong on the face of this building. And also, let me just say, with respect to the power coming to it, they did devise a means for the power to come to it. It's at the back of the building. However, it is a very visible light box, which would feed each of these strips. So for however many strips there are, that's how many light boxes there are, with the wiring going from that light box to the electrical strip. All in all, it's a big defacing of this building. Please don't approve this in any form. It's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Rebecca has her hand up.
Sorry, I just have a quick comment. The first is the whereas clause that says the fixing system will drill into the joints between the stones, and then that the fixing system will be easy to remove. Should we add a little bit more detail as to, the potential damage or anything, or is there none?
Well, I think we mentioned that we mentioned that there could be potential damage, but the applicant did speak to the fact that it was removable, that the holes and the fixing, the way the panels would be fixed would be easy. It would be easy to remove them. But it would not guarantee that there would be absolutely no damage to the front elevation.
Jane,
oh, maybe David wants to add.
Just want to add one little clarification. This building is owned by the French government. The French government would not allow something to go to a building that they respect and they use. So let's just put it in the context that the owners of the building and the French government is extremely careful about their own, what I'll call landmark quality buildings. So again, I'm not necessarily going to vote for this, but I want to be fair to it. And it is a French government owned building. And if the French government is willing to consider something like this, it's more than just somebody out there wanting to do an art exhibit arbitrarily on this building.
Thank you, David. I think we can go now. I see Addison has his hand up.
Oh, I was going to call the question, but if we're still waiting.
Oh, okay.
Why don't we call that? Let's treat it as a second, as the calling the question that Mrs. Brown had done.
Okay, thank you, Russell. That's fine. Anyone in favor, anyone opposed? So I think we can go to a vote.
Yeah.
Addison, you should have the ability to unmute. Oh, wait, no.
This was a disapproval. So if you vote yes, you're voting to disapprove.
Sandra, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Greetings. Please raise your hand if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause.
Oh, I should put my hand up.
Russell?
No.
Rebecca Dangle,
No.
Lori Boyce,
No.
Vanessa,
No.
Jane Pauscher,
No.
Addison,
No.
Miss Brown,
No.
Bill Anglos, Bill,
No.
John Phillips,
No.
Lindsay,
No.
Felice,
No.
Judith,
No.
Hassan. Sahar,
No. Yeah, no.
Greg,
No.
Myerson,
No.
Abraham,
No.
Paul,
No.
Rita,
No.
and Sandrea Coleman will be a no. And Wilma,
Well, I'm gonna look for the button on your screen to unmute so we can hear you. There you go.
All right, no. You get it?
Yep,
Yes.
thank you.
David,
No.
give it a few more seconds. All right, I can give a count back, but it looks like we have 21 no's. I can give an accurate count later.
Okay, so why don't we may want to come back to that one if that resolution failed, but I think let's proceed and we can come back to that once we have the final count.
Will, if you could put up the photo or the image for 40 72nd Street. This is a residential building that is in need of weather protection. They can't put on a conventional canopy with poles because there is a fire hydrant in front of the building. So the architect has come up with a canvas canopy that is extended out from the building 4 feet. The masonry opening is about 12 feet wide. And the green color is it's going to be green, but it is going to be a green that's going to be determined with the Landmarks Preservation Commission and with the board of the building. So that particular green is not necessarily the green it will be. It'll be a green that the Landmarks Preservation Commission deems appropriate. Apparently, the architect also looked at all of the residential buildings with canopies in the area, found that they were all canvas. The issue of why not do something that's bronze and glass came up, but he pointed out that typically a residential building has a canvas canopy. They thought that was what was appropriate. Although it was not unanimous, the proposal is that this is an appropriate solution for the canopy for the building. it's really fairly straightforward and simple. You have the existing on the left and you have the proposed on the right. The underside of the canopy is going to be a white or an off-white color, and the canopy will have no internal lighting. The only lighting that will be there will be the sconces that you have either side will remain. So it's very simple and in at least my personal judgment, very appropriate as a residential canopy on this particular building with this particular context. And I don't know if anybody wants to talk to it. I guess we have Marco and Michelle, so we'll give Michelle the first crack at it.
Thank you very much. Also, I just wanted to correct my committee vote from the preceding one. It was a disapproval, and you have me as an abstention. The preceding vote, and
We got it. That's the one.
No, and then the other one was not. But anyway, okay, doesn't matter. You're on the next count now. With reference to this, there are glass, and I was the one who asked the presenter whether or not they had considered bronze and glass, which in light of the configuration of the front double doors and the materials that they're made of, I thought that was much more appropriate for this building and would be beautiful. And in fact, there are glass and bronze canopies on the Upper East Side on residential buildings. There's one on 85th or 84th between Park and Madison, just to name one. So I didn't think that that was a reason that because it's on residential buildings that this should be too. To me, this green, whether it be a lighter shade, a darker shade, stands out, sticks out like a sore thumb. I think it overshadows the beautiful doors, and I think a glass and bronze canopy would be much more appropriate and also work with those bronze and glass doors and give them more recognition. So I voted no on this. I was opposed to this as presented. Thank you. And I think there is something that could be done about it. In other words, I don't think that it could not be resolved. I think if they took it back, they could get the bronze and glass. Thank you.
Marco.
Thank you. I would like to call the question. Is anybody can second?
Well, we have somebody else who would like to speak to it.
I think Evan was seconding.
Is that seconding?
I think Evan was seconding. He was the other hand.
Okay. And
Thank you.
and is anybody opposed to the vote? So let's go vote.
So I'm going to lower all the hands and unmute Addison to call the roll for this one. So if you've raised your hand and you're planning to vote, you're going to have to re-raise it. Addison, go ahead.
Yeah. Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. So if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. Michelle?
No.
No, thank you. Elizabeth?
No.
Thank you. Rebecca?
No.
Thank you. Alrighty, I'll give everyone just another second or two, and seeing none, the resolution passes, and I'll get the vote count in a second.
Russell, I don't know whether we want to hear the vote on Part B for 972 Fifth Avenue.
I think we'll get it when I think Sandra will give it to us when she has it.
Okay.
It's not quite ready yet.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we're going to move along right to 63 East 93rd Street. This was a unanimous disapproval. We had a couple of speakers in the public session, including Lo Vandervalk. I'll just briefly show you a picture. It's number 63. It's you can see in the little black box, that's the address, the street address along 93rd Street. Next slide. You see what the back of 63 looks like right now, and you can see the incredible build out in the rear. all the way up to the cornice, which doesn't match any of its neighbors. Next slide. And the penthouse at the top, which is harder to see. This sort of gives you that idea of 63, which is the darkened building, would be looking right into the public way. You can see the steps leading down to the public way. That's a zoning, the plaza was built to allow 40 East 94th Street to add floor area at the top. Remember the POPs? They were public open spaces, and you got to build a taller apartment building if you had a public open space. There is no closed donut in the back there, so that whole rear elevation of the new 4-story extension in the rear, plus the penthouse at the top, which covers the 2 historic windows at the adjacent apartment building, would be highly visible from the public way. There's unanimous disapproval from the committee.
So you have some hands. The first is Ed.
Okay, if we could take the slides down.
Yeah, and Ed, just clarify to make sure that you just showed up and you weren't voting in any of the previous votes.
Actually, I was trying to vote in a couple of them, but that's okay. But I wasn't.
Just clarify when you showed up. That's all, Ed.
I was at my son's event earlier this evening, so I got here for the last one. I was a yes though for the last
Item
vote.
2. Okay, great. Thank you.
But that was the only one, so I'm just new.
Okay.
I was just going to call the question. It was unanimous, right? I was just going to call the question. Looks like Marco's seconding. That was all.
So all in favor, any opposed? I think we can go to a vote or call the roll.
Chuck, are you opposed to calling the question?
Doesn't matter.
That's fine.
If he's the
I
only
just
one.
need to unmute Felice. So I'm gonna lower all the hands. Felice, take it from here.
Sure, thank you. Just providing the vote for landmarks item 1 part B, the vote was 14 yes and 21 no. So the vote is disapproved. Getting to item number 3, this is a unanimous disapproval on the committee, so voting yes is agreeing with the disapproval. So does anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Okay, so Chuck?
I'm not voting for cause as my firm is involved in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Addison?
I'm going to abstain. Oh, abstain. Sorry.
Yep, I got that. And anyone else? Okay, so this disapproval, oh, Rebecca?
Not on this vote.
Oh, okay. So this vote is disapproved, or approved, I guess, in the disapproval.
So let's go back to 1B.
Okay, I think we need another resolution in favor of the art installation.
Yeah, you have some hands. You have
Yes.
Rebecca and you have Alita.
I would like to put forward a substitute resolution to approve the installation.
Is there a second to that? I see Addison has a thumbs up.
Yep.
Yeah, Addison seconded it. Did we read the vote count, Russell?
Yeah, Felice did, didn't she?
Okay.
Yes, it's 14 yes and 21 no.
So there was a second to the substitute resolution.
Yep, and Alita has her hand up.
Alita.
Thanks, Jane and Russell. As chair of the Arts Committee, I believe strongly in the power of art installations, especially where well, just in general in art installations. However, this is a landmark. Its landmarks by themselves are special. Individual landmarks have a high standard of what should be appropriate. And to me, it's just not appropriate to put the lights on the building. They don't enhance, to me, the architectural features of it at all. So I just wanted to distinguish that, because while I am emphatically in support of art, this is not the right type of building or the right type of installation. That's my opinion, and that's why I voted against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alita.
Call the
I don't
question.
see any other hands, so I think we can go to,
Yeah,
all in favor, any opposed to calling the question? I think we can go to a vote then. So now, if you're gonna vote no, this is a substitute to approve the art installation.
Okay. So greetings, please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. Marco?
we have to unmute him.
Thank you. No.
Michelle?
No.
Alita?
No.
Margaret?
No.
Elizabeth?
No.
Anthony?
No.
Any more? I don't see any more. So it looks like, I'm a little confused how it was said, but it's 6 no's and the rest are yeses, so it passes, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go to the next, which is 167 East 73rd Street, an individual landmark. Could we please put up the rendering or the photograph? Well,
That's the plaza.
yeah. Okay, thank you. This is a 2-story carriage house. It is now the home of the Slovak Republic. They need identification. They're placing identification on the building in 2 ways. The first way are the flags, which come from one location and they bipart. They are 10-foot long flagpoles. They extend 7 feet out from the building, and the attachment is not visible because it's on the sill that extends out over the central entrance. The flags themselves are 4 foot by 6 foot. The architect did a search around the neighborhood with all the other consulates, which are much larger buildings, and those flags are 6 by 8. So essentially what has been done here is to use smaller flags than what is typical, but these flags are much more appropriate in size to this particular building. The other piece is having a sign, and it's hard to see, but to the right of the doors, I think you can see a slight difference in the tone of the brick. That's actually a stainless steel plaque that is replacing a current plaque. And the stainless steel plaque will have etched or incised letters that will be filled with black. So basically it'll be a black sign on a stainless plate. Essentially, we thought, those of us who voted in favor of it, and that's all except one, thought that this was appropriate and that the flag poles and the flags were in scale. So I think this one is fairly simple and straightforward. I don't know if anybody would like to comment on it. Marco?
And thank you. I would like to call the question.
Is there a second?
Rebecca Dangor.
Okay, anybody opposed? I don't know if Alita's opposed. I see her hand up. No, okay. So let's take the vote, please.
Alrighty, so if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause, please raise your hand now. Elizabeth?
I'm voting no, and I'm very sorry that I didn't have the opportunity to explain why, because I think that this should be turned down, and I would.
Alrighty, and then seeing no one else, this will go down as an approval, with 36 voting yes and 1 abstention. And the last vote was, that I took was 34 yeses and 3 nos. That was for the landmarks item number 2.
I would only add for those of you who are interested that of the two flags, one is of the Slovak Republic and the other is of the European Union. And on all the consulate buildings, they all seem to have the two flags, the country and the European Union. Just a little piece of information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
We will go next to the Street Life Committee. And Abraham, and let us know if you'd like us to also unmute Marco.
Great, thank you, Russell. And yes, you can unmute Marco because he was kind enough to step in for me for this month's meeting. So I can handle the unanimous approvals. We had 6 unanimous approvals. If anyone would like to take them together, I see hands. I'm assuming those are to take them together. Then I will entertain that invitation.
Make a motion to take them all together.
Okay, great. Is
All
anyone
yeses.
to the yeses?
Yes.
Is anyone opposed to taking them all together? Okay, if not, then I would ask the secretaries to take the roll on all of the unanimous 1A, B, D, E, F, and 3A.
Okay, that would be me. So is there anybody voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Okay, seeing none, this is unanimously approved.
Great, thank you very much. Then Marco, do you want to take items 1C and 2A to explain any of the no votes?
Oh, thank you, Abraham. The only person that opposed this application was Coase. And Coase, his point of view was the Eli's have something wrong in another application, and that was the reason why he voted no. The rest of the committee say yes. That is the only thing that I remember that Coase said. I don't know if Coase is today right here or not.
He's not here tonight.
Not here, but okay. So unless anyone else has any other comments or objections, then maybe we should. Yes, Rebecca?
Move to approve the 2 remaining applications.
Okay, great. Do I have a second?
So that's taking both of them together. I just want to clarify.
Yes. Is Michelle saying no?
Michelle's saying no.
If anyone doesn't want to take the 2 together, then we'll have to separate them.
Okay, fine. We can take them. We can take them separately.
So let's call it. Okay, so
Abraham,
Yes.
both applications was Coase was against, and for the same reason. There is nothing more. If Michelle wanna separate it, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so
but
is anyone opposed to taking them together?
Michelle, are you actually opposed to taking them together, or?
You know, I just don't think that's a great protocol when you don't have a unanimous vote in the committee.
Okay,
So,
fine. All right.
you know,
So
I just
let's
think
just treat it as
protocol.
Okay, in that case, then let's call the question on 1C. Is anyone opposed to calling the question on 1C? Okay, seeing none, then let's go to the secretaries on 1C, and then we'll go to 2A.
Okay, greetings again all. Please raise your hand if you are voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. I see no hands, so this passed unanimously. And, yeah. Okay, oh, and I
Thank you.
just want, for landmark, substitute item B, it was 31 yeses and 6. Give you an accurate count. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we have item 2A. Is anyone opposed to calling the question on 2A? I'm seeing no objections. In that case, I will go to our esteemed secretaries on 2A.
Alrighty, so on this vote, if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause on Street Life 2A, please raise your hand now. And seeing none, this will go down as a unanimous approval. Additionally, I'd just like to make one comment about landmarks item number 4. I accidentally stated that there was 36 yeses and 1 abstention. It's actually 36 yeses and 1 no vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, secretaries, and thank you, Marco. Good
You're
evening.
welcome.
Thank you. Okay, next let's go to the Transportation Committee report and Craig and Chuck. And it looks like you have some unanimous approvals here. I will observe.
Yes, we have 3 items, 3 unanimous approvals, and I think we'd like to just briefly discuss those 3. And Craig, if you want to take item number 1, which was a presentation from the MTA and New York City Transit regarding the upcoming 63rd Street line direct fixation track rehabilitation project. This was a joint item with the Roosevelt Island Committee, and this has great ramifications for Roosevelt Island. Is Craig there? If
yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Go
Chuck.
ahead. Why don't you go ahead on that one?
Sure. Thank you and good evening, everyone. So as Chuck mentioned, and as you heard in some of the public comments, the New York City Transit is going to be doing some major track renovations. They call it the direct track fixation project because the tracks are actually embedded into the tunnel itself. So this is a more complex construction project to rehabilitate these tracks, which were the original tracks when the 63rd Street tunnel opened. And as a result, it's going to be a 6-month-long process, with 4 of those 6 months requiring at least one of the directions of the 63rd Street tunnel to be shut down. So that's between May 1st and June 30th, in which the Queens-bound track will be shut down, and then I believe the chart in the minutes is actually wrong, and then it's from October 11th through some point in October, in which it's going to be shut down in the other direction, which means that those who are trying to get to Roosevelt Island and then Queensbridge are going to have to, or coming from there, are going to have to backtrack and go in one direction, and it's probably going to add a good 20 minutes in travel time in that to get around that closure in order to get to Roosevelt Island. And for those who require accessible stations, it's going to take even longer because the nearest station on both sides where you could theoretically make the transfers, which is 36th Street in Queens, and actually I believe it's Steinway Street, and then 57th and 6th Avenue on the Manhattan side. Those aren't accessible stations, so people who require elevators will have to go further. So the resolution essentially just speaks to some of the recommendations that we have and the requests that we're making of New York City Transit, and also REAC as well, to try to mitigate the issues that are going to be faced, the challenges that are going to be faced, especially for those coming to and from Roosevelt Island. And one of the things I just wanted to highlight is the fact that with nearly 90% of Roosevelt Islanders relying on the F train, many of them are going to divert to the tram, and the tram we are calling just for no service disruptions and running maximum levels of service during the times where there's a direction that is out of service. And also we're highlighting the fact that on the Roosevelt Island tram, Omni has yet to be installed. And therefore, if anyone wants to be able to make a transfer between the tram and the subway in Manhattan, they'll have to revert back to using MetroCard. And that's something that we are calling on the MTA to try to work with REAC to expedite the process of getting Omni installed, because that will help mitigate some of the issues, especially because people have had to face long lines and even outages for the MetroCard machines. So we speak about that. We speak about bus shuttle service, additional Q102 service, and a number of other recommendations as well.
I'd like to point out that Paul Crickler played a key role as not only representing the Roosevelt Island Committee at our hearing, but in helping develop the resolution. I don't know if Paul wants to make, some comments at this point on it.
I would like to, Chuck and Craig, very briefly, thank you. Everything that Judy said at the start is absolutely spot on. People are going to be inconvenienced for months and months on end. And the point I want to make is that this Omni issue, it's going to compound it. I've only been here a couple of years. Judy's been here much longer. Many people have been here much longer. But what's going to happen when we have 9 times the number of people who are going to go from the F train to the tram suddenly, and then you have the MetroCard machines not working. We've had that recently for 6 weeks straight, I think. We had lines already like 15, 20 minutes long for people. And can you imagine how long the lines are going to be if there's no if there's no MetroCard machine working? I think it's just ridiculous from my humble position why we can put people on the moon and we can do all sorts of great things. We can't get the last Omni machines back here at Roosevelt Island. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to stop talking now. We've got everyone here, very, very upset about this. Anything we can do to make things from going worse to even worse will be very helpful. That's the kind of stuff that the resolution is trying to address.
Yeah, and thank you, Paul. And I just want to add, I think we included in here as well transfers as well between for Roosevelt Island residents to the New York City NYC ferry as well. And just to be clear, in case anyone's wondering, well, why does this have to be done in this manner? The officials from New York City Transit explained that it's essentially like dental work where you have to let all the work sort of settle or dry or whatever. So it's not as if they could just do the work on weekends and then restart service that following Monday. It won't allow the tracks to be able to complete their repairs. And I should also mention as well that there are going to be 5 weekends between the end of April and the completion of this project where all service on the F train on the 63rd Street is going to be suspended, and only shuttle buses are going to be in place to connect people who wish to just stay within the New York City transit system and not use the tram or the ferry.
Yeah, this is going to be a major problem for everybody on Roosevelt Island, unfortunately, for that period when they're going through this. But let's go through and we'll talk about the other 2 items, and then we can take them all together unless people object. The next item was item 3, and it was a public hearing on a sightseeing bus.
Sorry, can we just confirm that we're going to take them all together? Because there's going to be discussion.
Okay,
on it.
If not, we should vote. I agree. Is there any objection to taking them all together at this point from anyone? We're all unanimous. I don't see anyone.
Okay.
Do you see? Okay.
Nope, go ahead.
So this is Aurora Tourism Services, a Black-owned business, and they have a proposal to use a bus stop on 5th Avenue between 61st and 62nd Street. They have double-decker sightseeing bus trips serving 9 locations across Manhattan, and it serves passengers that book reservations in advance, and they operate every 2 hours between 8 a.m. and midnight, and the loading and unloading of passengers who are already booked takes typically 2 to 3 minutes each time the bus makes a stop. And there's no laying over at any of these locations, and they're stored on Staten Island and in a layover in Lower Manhattan. And so it really doesn't, there's really no interference with other tourism buses, and the bus stop is also used by the two Bronx Manhattan MTA express buses that only discharge passengers at this location. And the New York DOT people confirmed that, you know, it made sense. And if somebody wants to use a stop in the future, then they'll see if it's any conflicts there. But we were all unanimous in that one. And let's see, the last item was one of our favorite items, discussion of proposed 5G pole attachments located within 10 feet of an adjacent building. And they're required to give notices to the board. And there were three sites: East 60th between Madison and 5th, East 65th between Madison and 5th Avenues, East 74th between 1st and York. These are ones that they put on light poles. These are not those big towers that we're talking about, but it's still within 10 feet. And we voted unanimously that, look, we didn't want them here. There was that issue at 520 East 90th Street where the thing was practically, you know, in somebody's window. And I don't know, I think they have a private lawyer who's trying to challenge that. And so our resolution not only says we oppose these three, but that we oppose any location within 10 feet of buildings that for these things, because we think they can find ways to put them on the light poles so they won't be within 10 feet. So those are all our resolutions. And I think if Mark, I don't know if anyone wants to further discuss any of them. I see Alita's hand is up. Why don't we unmute Alita?
Thank you, Chuck. I'm just thinking about the ferry and Roosevelt Island and the lack of the train. And I understand that the ferry doesn't take Omni and doesn't give free transfers. I'm wondering, I'd like to make a friendly amendment asking that that the city work with the ferry company to take people coming from Roosevelt Island at no charge if they're going, I don't know how to do this, but if they're going on the subways or the buses afterwards to facilitate ingress and egress from Roosevelt Island, if those are the correct words.
We did have something about the ferry here, I thought, too.
We did. I don't think it's in the resolution, in the resolves.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. Paul, do you want to, you know, Paul should still be unmuted here in case there's any. Craig, do you have any objection? I certainly don't. Paul?
I have no objection.
Okay.
Thank you.
Why don't we take that as a friendly amendment? Thank you, Alita.
Thank you.
Marco?
Thank you, Chuck. I would like to call the question for approval for unanimous approval.
Okay. Is there a second? There's Michelle seconded. Okay. So is there anyone objecting to that on all three of these? Seeing none, why don't we have one of the secretaries call the roll?
Okay, great. I just want to check since Taina's coffee cup is up. I just want to check whether Taina is here before we take the vote. Hearing nothing. I'll assume
She's back.
She's back?
She's back, yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Is anyone voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause? Seeing none, the item is approved.
Thanks. I think we're done, Russell.
All right, thank you very much. So let's go next to the Congestion Pricing Task Force, and Craig will stay unmuted and we will unmute Alita.
Thank you. Do you want to do this one, Craig? And hi, everyone.
Sure, I'm happy to do this. So we had another unanimous resolution here. And then this one was essentially, we were discussing issues regarding MTA transparency, accountability, and oversight as it relates to congestion pricing and the use of revenues generated. And we had a discussion where we were looking at ways in which we can try to get a little clarity from the MTA is in terms of what exactly has happened in the past that has resulted in projects that were either done way beyond budget or were overbuilt or were not done efficiently, as concerns were raised that with the congestion pricing funds that were going to be generated, how are we going to be comfortable knowing that the MTA is going to then be using that to support their capital program, but so many of the major capital projects in recent years have not exactly gone according to plan. So we have a series of recommendations here in which we essentially are trying to address some of these issues where we're calling on the MTA to perform after action reviews of some of their recent mega projects, including phase 1 of the Second Avenue subway, and also East Side Access, the Grand Central Madison project, to identify errors in accounting and budgeting and project design, and to issue reports so the MTA can immediately implement practices to avoid these mishaps from happening again on future projects that would be funded through congestion pricing, and then also to be more transparent in terms of audit and accounting practices that it maintains currently, and also to develop a web page dedicated to congestion pricing reporting. So this way, constituents and stakeholders are able to truly understand exactly where the funding for congestion pricing is going. Because one of the issues that came up is, as everyone probably knows, there is a congestion surcharge on New York City taxis and for-hire vehicles, and no one has been able to get any sense as to where those revenues are actually being directed to. So that is essentially our resolution. I'm happy to take any comments. And
I'd just
Elise,
like
want to
to
add
add-
anything? Go
Yeah,
for it.
no, I'd just like to add that it was unanimous and that we had a very extensive discussion on how to phrase the resolution so that it was looking forward and not just looking in the past, and not just saying no to the idea of congestion pricing, but as all of our resolutions have endeavored to be, actually productive and hopefully having some kind of impact as a way to better the scheme. Okay, let's go to Michelle and then Felice.
Thank you. I have 2 points. One, in addition, we also wanted some clarity on where the federal money went to. We had no explanation for that, that Washington gave the MTA. But I also just wanted to clarify something, and it's really very interesting, but the plan is called a tolling to the central business district. And I know that in our resolutions, we use that term, and we use it because they use that term. But this, in fact, I just want to clarify for everybody because people don't know what the boundaries are. They know that at 60th Street, you enter the zone, and somehow Central Business District implies that maybe you leave the zone at maybe 34th Street, because that would be like central business. But no, I just want to clarify, it is not the case. This goes down to the very tip of Manhattan. Mott Street is included, Carmine Street is included, Battery Park City is included, Wall Street, every single street in this city from 60th South and from the FDR Drive, which is not included, west to the West Side Highway, which is not included. Every street is included. So if you take the FDR down and you're not paying a toll, but you want to go to your favorite restaurant and maybe Chinatown or Little Italy and you exited Canal Street, you are paying a toll. So I understand we're using their terminology. I don't know if it's appropriate to sort of make a little amendment with the definition of the central business district, because I really think it needs clarification, because I found that in my talking to people, when they saw the map, they had no idea. I don't think that message is getting out there. And whether or not you're for it or you're against it, it's certainly appropriate for people to know accurately what streets are involved. So if there's a friendly, not even an amendment, if you could put another whereas clause in here that just says, whereas the central business district terminology includes all streets south of 60th to the tip of Manhattan, from east from FDR, not including, and west to, just to get the clarification. I think it's really important because I can assure you people do not know. So does that meet everybody Can people be accepting of that?
I'm fine with that, Craig.
I just don't think it's necessary. The Central Business District tolling program is the language that was used in the 2019 budget law that enacted this program, and it's defined in there, and we've defined it in all of our prior resolutions.
No, we haven't, Craig. We have
Without arguing about it
I mean, what harm does it do to put it in a whereas that to define?
That's Michelle, you've been muted. It doesn't, we may have referred to it and we may even have laid it out in prior resolutions, but I don't see the harm in repeating it again, because we do have other language from the law that refers to generalities about the congestion pricing zone or scheme. So I don't think there's harm in having it. And if it clarifies it for people who may not have been up to date and may be coming to meetings for the first time or becoming aware of this for the first time, I don't think it hurts.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Felice?
A lot of this information is already available. Not only has the MTA performed reviews, analyses, and commentary on the cost overruns and some of the financial issues for Second Avenue Subway and East Side Access, but so have organizations like the Regional Plan Association and the Government Accounting Office, and I believe the Manhattan Institute. In addition, the MTA has spoken quite a lot about what they would do to make corrections for phase 2 of the Second Avenue Subway and address a number of the issues. So I think it's really unnecessary to ask for yet another report of something that's already been extensively reported on. In addition, a list of audit and accounting procedures. There are there's state legislation that relates to what the MTA has to report, and on their monthly finance committee meetings, capital program committee meetings, and other meetings they go through. Their extensive account auditing and accounting procedures. So I think there is a lot of transparency already there. And in terms of the funding for the congestion pricing, I think it is part of the soup of funding that goes into how the MTA funds their capital program. And they identify the list of projects that are intended to be funded through the capital program. But I think it is unrealistic and administratively burdensome to say that projects, A, B, C, and D, and E are the ones that are funded through congestion pricing. I think it's appropriate to hold the MTA's feet to the fire overall on their capital projects, but to identify those specific projects related to a specific stream of funding, I think is unnecessary. And I think it just adds to the administrative burden and reporting that the MTA already has to go through, and just adds to the bureaucracy. Thank you.
Well, there were some concerns that the accounting oversight has not really been effective, given the recent bunch of articles discussing some of the issues with the Second Avenue Subway and East Side Access, and they are continuing to appear. This was a unanimous vote, including by people who generally support congestion pricing. It's just felt that the MTA has not been transparent enough, and that the idea of oversight and an accessible page on the website for people who are not trained accountants would be useful for the public, because there is $1 billion a year of money at stake here. Craig?
Well, can I just ask for clarification? Felice, are you saying that there have actually been published reports that are essentially those after action reviews?
Yes. I'm happy to send you links to it.
Yeah, I just want to be careful that we're not just putting out a resolution that is irrelevant because it's already been done. If it's in fact exactly what we've been asking for, it would.
And the head of MTA construction and development, as well as the head of the MTA, have both spoken extensively about what corrective action they're taking on Second Avenue Subway Phase 2 to ensure that you don't have the same sorts of overruns and issues that they had on the first two projects.
Okay, thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, real quick. Originally I raised my hand just to make sure that Michelle's friendly amendment was included. So I think that issue has been resolved. However, I would just like to say that I agree with Felice's idea that there's more administrative work, more bureaucracy. God knows, all of us on any community board knows there's way too much bureaucracy going on. However, with respect to the MTA, wow, that's like a Max Weber ultimate weekend seminar in grad school on org theory. I don't even know where to begin, but I won't go on. I'll just simply say that, yeah, it would be overly burdensome. However, I think all the administrative tasks that the MTA are given are simply sloughed off. So I don't know if we're adding an unnecessary and irrelevant burden to them. So I support the resolution. I don't think it's too much. Personally, I think the MTA deserves a complete, total audit from top to bottom and zero-based budgeting and just the whole bit. But you already know I'm against congestion pricing as a whole for funding anything to the MTA. So anyway, I'll just stop. But there you go. Thanks.
Thank you, Ed. Chuck? That is you, right? Yes.
I'd like to call the question.
Are there any objections to calling the question? Are there any seconds? I mean, I meant to say first.
There's a bunch of seconds. Michelle
objects.
objects. No, I don't think anybody else objects.
If there's no other objection and not a lot of other objections, then we should just go to a vote.
Okay.
Secretaries.
All righty, greetings again. Please raise your hand if you're voting no, abstaining, or not voting for cause. Police?
No.
Few more seconds. This motion passes, 36 yes and 1 no. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandrea.
All right, thank you both. So that concludes our committee reports. There is one item of old business that I know about. I'm going to call on Rebecca. We can't hear you.
Sorry, for landmarks, item 2, I was looking at the wrong thing. So my vote is a yes, no.
Okay, thank you. So we'll change that. Secretaries, did you get that? Item 2, landmarks, she's a yes. Okay, good. All right. Okay, with that, if there's no other old or new business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Marco so moves, a lot of seconds. Very good. Thank you, everybody. And good job keeping us on track. And we will see you all at the next meeting. Have a good night.